Toss those hats into the air, baby. Troy Vetchkin with a big hat trick on Dia de los Muertos night. We'll talk about that on this episode of Locked On Anaheim Ducks. Toss those hats, baby. Toss them, yeah!
You're Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jason J.D. Hernandez. I've been covering hockey for well over a decade. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. That's right. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So I'm currently doing public address for the Firebirds. I've been covering the Ducks for a while. This is my 5th year hosting this show, and it's been a while since I've been excited about a Ducks team. And even though I'm in the middle of a move, I'm still going to put out 2 episodes today because what happened last night was just unbelievable. And the fact that the Ducks have a 5-game winning streak, that hasn't happened in a while. There is a caveat to that, and I will talk about that caveat late in this podcast. But first, I want to talk about the one I call Troy Vetchkin, my birthday buddy, born September 10th, also born September 10th. I love Troy Terry. I will make no, qualms. I won't hide it. Like, Troy Terry is my favorite Duck right now. And what he did last night was more proof of that. More proof of why I think, okay, there are those saying that Mason McTavish should be the next captain for the Anaheim Ducks. And I get that. I totally get why a lot of people would say, rightfully so, that Mason McTavish should be the next captain of the Anaheim Ducks. I'm on the side that Troy Terry should be the next captain. See, that's why I haven't put any money on who's going to be next captain. McTavish is only 20 years old. I'm going to say this again. McTavish is only 20. I think he still needs to kind of build into that role a little bit, although McTavish is showing flourishes. Troy Terry's still young himself. He just turned 26. I mean, he was one of the 25 and unders for a long time. But Troy Terry's only 26 years old. Also, he just signed that massive new contract. So you know that Troy Terry is going to be around for a long time. In fact, looking at the long-term deal, that's going to take it all the way to 2030. That's that $7 million per year, 7 years, 7 by 7. So Troy Terry is going to be around for the next 7 years. Reason one why I think, since you know you're going to have the longevity, Troy Terry is going to be around. The fact that he does score points, he scores points big time, and does contribute to that top line whenever possible, yeah, that's another thing. But also, I look at the leadership qualities, and I look at how he pulls the team together. He had to pull that team together during yesterday's game versus the hated, it's now a new month. So, sorry, Robin, but I guess the hated Phoenix Coyotes. Ugh, so satisfying to beat those guys, and especially with Troy Terry at the helm, because he was skating like his you-know-what was on fire last night. He was getting to loose pucks left and right. He was winning all the battles. He was getting, I think, the kind of quality shots that you need, but also he was lethal on the power play yesterday. He was absolutely out of his mind on this one. That first goal, by the way, chef's kiss, perfect shot. Loved that Troy Terry goal. That second one on the power play, I've got to give credit to Pavel Mintyukov on this one, because he has proven himself in a grand scale too. And I'm going to talk more about Mintyukov on a later podcast, where a friend of mine actually admitted texting, yeah, I was wrong about him. Well, he was also wrong about Troy Terry, because this same friend said that Troy Terry plays too systematic. He plays, he plays robotic. He does the same thing over and over. Okay, you know what? No, I'm going to... I love him, but he's wrong on this one. Troy Terry, I think, has broken out of that mold, and I think a lot of that has to do with the new coach, Greg Cronin. Troy Terry's game has opened up a lot this season, and had been a little bit snake bitten so far this season. If you remember, he was shooting at a very high rate of, at one point, something like 20% a couple seasons ago. He was shooting way up there. Before last night's game, he was shooting an alarming, I want to say, like, it was 2 goals. And it was like 25, 26 shots. So he was shooting well under 10%. And he was getting snake bitten. Now with the hat trick, he's shooting 16.7%. This was the game where he was being aggressive. This was the most aggressive I had seen Troy Terry pretty much all year long. All year long. Not Trevor Zegras, not Leo Carlson, but Troy Terry. He put the team on his literal back last night and capitalized by that just beautiful... Well, first off, the feed from Mason McTavish, the little shoulder fake McTavish gave, was nice. But the finish by Troy Terry was unbelievable. And on Dia de los Muertos nights, that's what makes it all the more satisfying, is it was on Dia de los Muertos nights. So props to Troy Terry. We've had a past Dia de los Muertos where Ryan Getzlaf scored a game-winning goal in overtime, and I could remember the Mexican radio call at the time, Ryan Getzlaf, El Capitan. Ooh, that's another reason why, that's kind of like just a personal reason, but can you imagine if that radio call last night was Troy Terry, El Capitan? Can you just imagine it? Because I can. I can absolutely imagine it. All right, that was kind of a quick little segment there. We're going to head to the first intermission, talk about the game itself, and I mentioned what I was going to talk about later on, so we'll get to that later. Stay locked in. And now, a word from Sleeper. So, Sleeper is just a great daily fantasy hockey app where you can win up to 100 times your bet. Because, this new season has brought all kinds of unpredictability. Maybe Frank Vetrano could still score 50 goals. Maybe Troy Terry can score 50 goals. It's looking pretty good. Maybe the Ducks make the playoffs. And you could win big by playing the daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey, because you could win up to 100 times your bucks in contests. You could take Troy Terry to get a hat trick. You could take Frank Vetrano to get a hat trick. Any one of those guys could get a hat trick at this point, right? Right? I love it. All you have to do is pick guys like Terry, Vetrano, McTavish, etc. to record more or less than their sleeper predictions for things like goals, assists, plus minus, and more in a given game. And to win 100 times your bet, correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Ducks fans. Win up to 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Once again, you're locked in with Jason JD Hernandez, as this is kind of like a bonus-y episode because I was only planning on doing 2 episodes this week, but after what happened last night, I had to do a quick podcast about just that wonderful game, Dia de Los Muertos night at the Ponda. You know, you had the plaza all decked out. You had all the Dia de Muertos stuff in and around the arena. You had the warm-up jerseys. I mean, brilliant. And I wish I had it on me, but because I'm in the middle of moving, I don't have it. But if I was in my spot, I would be wearing my Dia de los Muertos jersey right now because that is my favorite jersey that I own. I mean, yes, I own a bunch of Ducks jerseys. That one's my favorite one. So on this Dia de los Muertos night, magic happened against the hated the hated Phoenix Coyotes. Yeah, hate them. I make no qualms. I don't like the Coyotes at all. And it was satisfying to see Troy Terry just bust out in the first period right away on 2 quick power play goals. One just a snipe, and then one on a nice little backhand from a kind of quasi, like, not broken play, but it was kind of a weird play. But Troy Terry put it away. 2-0 right away. And then you had Krause score. Then you had Logan Cooley score his first professional goal. Okay, congrats to the kid. Logan Cooley scored. Okay, fine. He scored. And then Krause scored again in the second on an ugly goal. This, the goal itself wasn't ugly. I think it was how it was setting up was ugly. Because the Ducks kind of fell asleep there a little bit. And this is still a concern for the Ducks, is they are still falling asleep a little bit in certain aspects of the game. They're falling asleep on defense at times, and they're allowing some tough shots. And by that, I mean high danger chances. And this against Lukáš Dostal, who has been brilliant. I mean, Dostal has been brilliant all season long. He's pretty much cementing himself as the number 1 for the Ducks as of right now. Based on the game report last night from Natural Stat Trick, the expected goals last night was 3.15 to 2 in favor of, you guessed it, the Coyotes. And you cannot allow those kind of chances, and you cannot get outchanced like that every game. That's exactly what happened again. The shot attempts, 67 to 42 in favor of the Coyotes, according to Nat Stat Trick. So the Ducks, again, getting outshot, out-attempted, especially in that second, and especially that third period. 23-17, 24-13 in favor of the Coyotes. Yeah, that's kind of a troubling stat. Because while the Ducks have this 5-game winning streak, they're still getting outshot most of the time. They're still getting outplayed a lot of the time. And they shouldn't be getting outplayed by the Coyotes. I'm sorry, but the Coyotes are not a good team. I'm going to say that again. The Coyotes, they're not good. They shouldn't be getting outplayed like that by a team like Phoenix. That's what's a little bit troubling. That's what was the main concern, especially in the second and especially the third period, where they just got outshot and outplayed for a lot of that period. I mean, yes, there was the tip goal by Leo Carlsson in the third period, and this was on a shot from the left side for Troy Terry. I think that shot might have had a chance to go in, but it went off of the stick, not quite the blade, but just above the blade of Leo Carlsson, and it deflected. That was the game-tying goal. So good for Leo Carlsson to be at the right place at the right time. Nice little kind of semi-screen, got the stick on it. So that's Leo's third of the season. But I think Troy Terry by himself probably could have gotten that in, and that would have been the hat trick for Troy Terry. Would have been. So game is tied. We're going to overtime. Plays going back and forth. Arizona getting puck control for a lot of overtime. And then you kind of had a 2-on-1 breakaway. And this was the backbreaker for the Coyotes. The 2-on-1. You had McTavish on the left side, Troy Terry on the right side. You had McTavish give a slight little fake, totally, and I mean totally faked out the defense and completely faked out Vejmelka. Vejmelka was just in no man's land because he knows that Mason McTavish is dangerous. He's very dangerous, folks. As we've seen all season, McTavish is part of that amazing line, the Vetrano, Strome, McTavish line. So there's a little bit of reputation there. And McTavish fooled Vejmelka, passed it to a fairly open Troy Terry, but Troy Terry just got it right on the blade with a perfect shot. I don't think anyone else on the team right now, not even Trevor Zegras, I don't think anyone else could have played that perfectly on either end. The perfect pass, the perfect fake, the perfect goal by Troy Terry, and the place goes nuts. I want that Spanish call for all time. Final score, 4-3 in overtime, and that is a hat trick for Troy Terry. And that is the third hat trick for the Ducks this season. In fact, that's the third hat trick for the Ducks in a month. It's been a month, and there's been 3 hat tricks for the Ducks. It's been a while since the Ducks have had that many hat tricks in one go. And, I'll bring that up in the final segment as well. So I'm going to talk about just a few odds and ends on this final segment. We'll get to that on the other side. And now, a word from Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Don't spend a bunch of hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find the top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match. Do you hate waiting? Because I hate waiting. Indeed's US data shows that over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates. Look, candidates are invited to apply through Instant Match because they are 3 times more likely to apply to your job than candidates who only see it in the search. And with Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you got to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/lockedon to start hiring right now. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. We're also brought to you by FanDuel. That is right. The NHL season is heating up. Score this season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Maybe you put some money on the Ducks to beat the Coyotes, and I hope you did, because that was satisfying in many ways. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. Maybe the Ducks will win 6 games in a row. Put some money on that. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, futures, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get the NHL season going right. FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. And please, folks, gamble responsibly. So I got a few odds and ends to talk about. First, I want to talk about the caveat. The caveat with winning this many games in a row is that we've seen this before. The last time the Ducks had this long of a winning streak, you've got to go back to the 21-22 season. The Ducks had won 8 games in a row. That was the start of that season when the Ducks were in first place to start off the season. Do y'all remember what happened after Christmas? Yeah, it got pretty bad. It got a little bit dicey after Christmas, And it especially got dicey after that All-Star break when the Ducks had a long layoff. The Ducks had won actually 8 games in a row. And part of the start of that winning streak was a prior Dia de los Muertos game, which I will talk about in a second. So it is a small sample size. Yes, I'm excited. I haven't been this excited since November 2021. But it is still early days. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. This is still a young team. So let's proceed with caution here. I just got to be realistic and just got to remind you that we've been here before. So proceed with caution. But for right now, let's be excited. Speaking of Dia de los Muertos, speaking of that streak, let's go back to prior Dia de los Muertos games. Let's go back to November 1st, 2019, the El Capitan game. That was the one where Ryan Getzlaf got a nice assist from Troy Terry. This was against the Vancouver Canucks. We're halfway through overtime. Ryan Getzlaf scored on a breakaway. El Capitan. That was the game winner back in 2019 on Dia de los Muertos night. Then 21-22, you had that great win against the Canadiens on Halloween. Then on Dia de los Muertos, they beat the Devils 4-0. That was a shutout. So again, another memorable Dia de los Muertos game on 2021. That was fantastic. By the way, Troy Terry, 2 goals on Dia de los Muertos night. And Ryan Getzlaf scored on the power play. Sorry, El Capitan Ryan Getzlaf scored on that power play. That was beautiful. Then let's go back to Dia de los Muertos last year against the Toronto Maple Leafs, again in overtime. Remember this game? The Toronto Maple Leafs had a 3-1 lead. Then Trevor Zegras and Dmitry Kulikov tied it up late in the third. That went to overtime. Remember that Trevor Zegras goal in overtime against the Maple Leafs? I'm smiling big because I remember that goal. I remember just kind of laughing at the fact that the Leafs just got outplayed late in the game, and that was it. Oh, that was beautiful. I'm sorry, but that was beautiful. That was. A lot of Maple Leafs fans broke down. Steve Dangle famously broke down after that game. How do you lose to the last? Yes, I know. I remember that rant so well. And that was last year's Dia de los Muertos game in overtime. And then this one also in overtime. So you got a Getzlaf overtime goal, a Zegras overtime goal, now a Troy Terry overtime goal. What is it about Dia de los Muertos that just gives the Ducks some kind of mystical, magical, wonderful power? Maybe it's no coincidence that every time the Ducks have a Spanish language broadcaster, they win in overtime. I'm just saying, Anaheim Ducks, maybe have more games with a Spanish language announcer because they seem to do well when that happens. I'm just saying. So that's a little brief history on Dia de los Muertos. And speaking of a little bit of history, I got to talk about the fact that the Ducks have 3 hat tricks in less than a month. And doing a quick search, we haven't had that happen. I don't think we've ever had that happen where the Ducks have had, actually I take it back, 96. 2 of them were Teemu Selanne. One was Gary Valk back in 1996. That's the last time, or that's one of the times the Ducks had 3 hat tricks in about a month span. And again, just doing a quick little search, I think that may have been the only time that's happened. That might be. So a little bit of, I should say a little bit of history, but kind of neat history, because I don't think that's happened. Yeah, 2011 didn't happen then, missed it by a few days, where you had a Visnovsky, Selanne, Perry trio of hat tricks, but that was within 2 months. So we're close there. No. Just quick research. Oh, and Nick Bonino, Kyle Palmieri, Andrew Cogliano back in 2013. So you had that within a month span as well. And that, my friends, is the last time that the Ducks had 3 hat tricks in a matter of a month. So you've actually got to go all the way back to 2013. February 2nd, Nick Bonino. February 27th, Kyle Palmieri. March 2nd, Andrew Cogliano. That's the last time that a trio of Ducks got a hat trick in a month span. And the first time, Teemu Selanne, Gary Volk, February 25th to March 22nd. But this is a short time span. This is about 2.5 weeks span. And speaking of hat tricks, I mentioned that I was going to look this up, so I'm looking this up right now. Not often have you had a same Duck score consecutive hat tricks in a month. And just looking very quickly, this has only happened one other time. That's it, one other time? All right. Corey Perry. Corey Perry is the other Duck to score 2 hat tricks in a month. October 2014. That's the last time that happened. So those are some of the odds and ends I want to talk about. That'll do it for this podcast. And as I've mentioned, just 3 shows this week. We will try to be back with regular shows next week, and hopefully I'll be in the new spot. So we'll see. Fingers crossed. In the meantime, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Don't forget, this podcast is free and available across all platforms, including Stitcher, Spotify, Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, ad-free on Amazon. So check us out on Amazon, also on SiriusXM. You could follow me on the Twitter sphere at StimpyJD. The show's Twitter's at LO_Ducks. You could email me at lockedonanaheimducks@gmail.com. And once again, thank you all for your continued support. It is so greatly appreciated. Let's go for 6 wins in a row, shall we? Let's do it. For Locked On Anaheim Ducks, I'm Jason JD Hernandez saying have a great weekend, folks. Please remember to be safe out there, be kind to one another, and Ducks fly together.